Dr. Steve Parr with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board and the Georgia Baptist Convention came to speak to a group of pastors at the associational meeting Tuesday. Matter of fact, actually, when we actually got done talking, it was 2 o'clock, and it started at 10. So I don't know that we'll get all the way through this. And I wanted to make sure that I gave Brother Steve credit. Matter of fact, actually, if you will go, I think it's steveparr.org, steveparr.org, you will find a tremendous amount of his information. He's written a couple of books, and one of them is Why Do They Stay? I would encourage you. It's not real expensive. It's less than $20. But it is a very good book. I have it on my desk. I've been reading it for the last couple of days. So I wanted to talk to you for just a little bit, if I can get this thing to work. I don't know why I can never get this thing to work. I don't know what it is. But I'm clicking it. Don't you have to go over there and click on it one time or something? There you go. There you go. I don't know if y'all can see this or not from where you're sitting. Does anybody catch what's unique about this picture? Absolutely, right there. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if you can tell this building right here goes all the way back. This is a campus. This is not just a church, all right? And this church is for sale. And you can probably pick it up for a song. And so Steve's premise was, and his argument was, why are our churches folding up? Well, think about it for just a minute, okay? There's some good news and there's some bad news. The good news is Christianity in places like China is off the chain. Christianity in places like South America are off the chain. Latino countries, you know what I'm saying? Spanish-speaking people, off the chain. Matter of fact, they're actually now trying to get together a mission board to start sending missionaries to America. So, while the good news is Christianity is growing worldwide, the bad news is Christianity in North America is eroding at an alarming rate. Okay? Now, why is that? And that's what is happening here. Okay? He narrows it down to these 4 or 5 different situations. He says, first and foremost, he talks about spiritual forces, rapid change in the culture, ethnic shifts, generational collisions, and hardening hearts. And those put together create a higher wall for evangelicals or for Christians in general to kind of jump over in order to be able to disciple other Christians. Okay? So, what does he mean when he says spiritual warfare? Paul told Timothy what? We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but what? Principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. We see this more, and I don't know that it is any more than it ever was, but it is more in your face today than it's ever been. If you just type in a few keywords on your search browser, and you will find out that witchcraft in America is growing faster than Christianity. Now think about that for a minute now. I've talked to people who have told me, hey, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Okay? And we'll deal with that in just a minute. All right? Spiritual forces. Okay? A rapid change in culture. Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Well, I think it's like the way things have changed in our culture from same-sex marriages to, alcohol being sold, just about everywhere now on Sundays. Just our culture as a whole is changing drastically.
Okay. And maybe not for the better, but it's changing. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Disintegration of family. Okay. And we're going to talk about that too. All right. So.
More centered on individual. It's all about me.
Okay. It's all about me. All right. And it is true for some generations. Okay. Ethnic shifts. Anybody know what they're talking about there? What about immigration in the United States? What do we talk about and fight over all the time about what? Yeah. Illegal immigration into the United States. Is that right? Does that in fact change the ethnic makeup of America? It absolutely does. And it's different than it was years ago when we were, the great, who was it that wrote that we were a melting pot? See, because in that culture, right, people came to America through Ellis Island, but they came to be Americans. See? Now today, guess what? They want to maintain their own ethnic group. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm German, you know what I'm saying? My mom's full-blooded German, and I can eat bratwurst with the best of them, you know what I'm saying? But that doesn't stop me from being an American. And so that's why this ethnic shift, we're seeing it at such a rapid pace. Because today, people don't want to be a part of the melting pot. Now, I know what somebody's going to say. Somebody's going to say, well, this illegal immigration is wrong and this, that, and the other. And I agree with you. But here's the deal. The kid standing next to me or the person standing next to me as a Christian, do I have any right not to offer him the gospel? I do not. Matter of fact, I have an obligation to offer them the gospel. Is that not right? Now you say, wait a minute now. Wait a minute, that guy on TV had a gun. He was pointing at somebody. But I'm trying to talk to you as a Christian, okay? We need to be reaching out to everybody, every creature that will listen to us, okay? This generational collision was pretty neat, okay? Anybody want to take a stand, crack it at me? Today in America, there are at least 5 generations still alive. 5 generations still alive. We hear a lot about the millennials, we hear a lot about Generation X, and we hear a lot about Generation Y, okay? But there are 2 other generations that are yet alive, all right? Anybody want to take a stab at them? The 70-plus people who were what? World War II, all right? And then the 55 to maybe 72, right? Anyway, hardening hearts. I mean, as a rule, do we see people now more skeptical than they've ever been? Okay, don't believe that? Just watch the confirmation hearings. People are more skeptical and hateful than they've ever been. Okay, all of that doesn't cause that. All of that means that there's a heightened barrier, a barrier that our parents, our grandparents, didn't have to jump over. And now the church in North America has to jump over this. Okay? Take your Bibles and go with me to Psalms. Did y'all look that up? Or did you see that in the email? Psalms chapter 71. Yeah, Psalms chapter 71. Say amen when you get there. Ready? Psalm chapter 71. Look with me in verse 15. It says, my mouth shall show forth thy righteousness and thy salvation all the day, for I know not the numbers thereof. I will go in the strength of the Lord. I will make mention of thy righteousness, even of thine only. Now, verse 15 says, why is he going to tell people about God? Okay, because God is righteous. But why is he going to tell them about God? He says, I will tell them all the day. Why? For I know not the numbers thereof. What's he talking about? Anybody else got a different translation?
How many are lost?
What is it? What does yours say?
My mouth shall tell of your righteousness and your salvation all the day, for I do not know their limits.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have NIV.
Go.
My mouth will tell of your righteous deeds, of your saving acts all day long, though I know not how to relate to them all.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, when you go back and look this up in the original language, guess what you find out? He says, I'm going to tell people about your salvation all day long because I don't know how much longer I got. Because I don't know the number of my days. Does that sound familiar to anybody? So we should be sharing the gospel because why? Hey, you may check out tomorrow. Some of us may check out tonight. Amen? Some of us, maybe the next breath, the next heartbeat, we're not guaranteed any of that, are they? And the psalmist said, guess what? I'm going to tell people about your righteousness and your salvation because I don't know the number of my days. Now listen to this. Verse, what was that? 15. He says, verse 16, he says, I will go in the strength of the Lord God. I will make mention of thy righteousness, even of thine only. O God, thou hast taught me from my youth, and hitherto have I declared thy wondrous works. Now also, when I am old and gray-headed, O God, forsake me not, until I have showed thy strength unto whom? This generation, and the power of every one that is to come. What's he saying? The evangelism of this generation is whose responsibility? It's ours. Now, we're going to do a little exercise here. I'm going to ask you to stand up, so all right? Everybody stand up. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo! I know, I saw somebody lean over. I saw Ernie lean over to Norman and say, if I didn't know we were going to do all this, I'd have stayed home. All right? Let me ask you a question. Everybody that came to faith in Christ before the age of 20, sit down. Okay? Everybody that came to Christ by the age or before the age of 30, sit down. All right? 40? 50? Did y'all notice something? When do people get saved? When they're younger. Very few people, by the time they get to their age, does what? What did he say? Y'all can sit down. Thank y'all. What did he say? When I was young, I did what? I got saved. Is that not right? And he said, now that I am old, what? He says, I'm trying to reach the next generation to tell them what happened to me. Why? Because he recognized that when folks get older, guess what happens? Remember that point? Hardness of the heart? Get set in your ways. Ain't nobody telling me what to do. I'm going to do whatever I want to. I'm going to tell you a little story. Go back to that slide if you don't mind. I'll tell you a little story. Went out the other day, thought I was doing a good thing, went to the VA, spent all night down there with my dad in the emergency room. Doctor says, look, you got to get your feet up. That's your problem, you got to get your feet up. Right? So I went down there to Badcock's and bought a $600 electric recliner. Had to drive home all over the world. Anyway, hauled it over there. He called me everything but a child of God. We took the old recliner out. I threw it away. I put the new recliner in there. And he absolutely, Mary called me Tuesday. She went down there. She said, you know, this chair is unplugged. Absolutely refused it. He's not sitting in it. Has he changed his mind, Miss Linda? Hadn't sat in it yet. Sits in a rocking chair right beside it with his feet down. knowing the doctor said the only way your feet are going to get any better is if you elevate them. Now, you're talking about hardness of heart? Don't think that head can't say, hey, even though God's offering them salvation, what? I don't think so. Go back to the slides. Can you put the slide back up there? Okay. Maybe not. Here we go. Okay. You got to quit going out of town so much. Okay, it exploded. That's back one. Okay, so today what he actually dealt with was rapid change in culture, generational collision, and hardness of hearts, okay? So, see if we can do all this. Cultural currents have strengthened. In other words, the culture is changing faster now. What we could do and say 5 years ago, we cannot say today. I'll give you an example, okay? I wasn't Abilene. What's the other one over there? Warren did a thing for athletes, student athletes. In Thompson, McDuffie County, right? They were going to take the football team over to be a part of this. Now, this was on a Sunday, okay? They were not taking any school material. They were just telling the kids, hey, we want to go, you know what I'm saying, over there. If you want to go, call us. We'll make sure you get away, okay? Do you know what the school board did when they got wind of it? They said, not by the hair of our chinny chin chin. Even though they weren't using school transportation, even though they weren't going in the name of Thompson, but they said, if you go over, they told that football coach, if you go over there, you're fired. Now, think about this for a minute now. Now, why is that? Because somebody had threatened, that's exactly right. And you know what the premise was? Well, if my kid doesn't go, these other kids who went will receive preferential treatment when it comes to playtime. Now, do you know how idiotic that is? But that's the culture in which we live, okay? So, it's not easy being a teen today. I thought that was pretty cute. He told a story. He said, today, if you think about it, and you guys have got to help me now. I brought you over here for backup, okay? Because whether you realize or not, you are Generation Z, okay? Today, if a kid, you ever seen a kid ride a bicycle today? It looks like they're on a motorcycle. They got more protective stuff on, and grandma is running behind them, holding them so that they don't get killed. Today, parents won't even let their kids go in the yard and play. When we were little, as long as we came home, we stayed in the same county and came home before midnight, we were all right. But the culture in which we live today, have y'all ever heard the term helicopter parent? That's what Generation Z deals with. And guess who Generation Z's helicopter parents are?
It's the lawnmower parents now. They go and mow everything down and make everything good for them.
Here's the deal. Think about it for a minute. Who are the parents of Generation Z?
Generation Y.
Which are
Us, me.
millennials. So, these are books we're not seeing as many kids come to faith. We're losing more than we're keeping after graduation. This is the current baptism rate across the Southern Baptist Convention in the state of Georgia. Okay? This is the baptism rate, all right? Average across the entire state, 1 teen is baptized a year. The median is 0. 50% of the churches are baptized, no teens. Now, if that don't scare you, it should. Okay? So, why focus on the kids' needs? 2/3 of the population are pre-13, and 3/4 are pre-16. So, Generation Z, these are a couple of good books. All right? We have to become missionaries cross-culturally. Come on now. All right? And here's the 3 ways you do it. I'm trying to rush through this. I hope it. All right? Focus on relationships. What does he mean when he says that? Today, in our generation, why did you go to church? Because your parents got up in the morning and said, what? Time to go to church. Is that not right? What's that old saying, the joke about being drugged to church? Yeah, drug child, yeah. Drugged to church, didn't want to go. Today, what has to happen? No relationship, guess what happens? No attendance. Why? Because the generation is at a point that, guess what? They don't come just because somebody told them to come, because most of the time, guess what? They're millennial parents. They don't go to church. So why would they make their children go to church? Does that make any sense? Passion. Every generation is one with passion. Whatever it is you do, you got to have a want to do it. There is nobody in Generation Z that is coming to this church when we're all, not church again. And we got some people like that. Okay? And this last one right here, I would be very careful with this. That's deference without compromise. In other words, you know what? Focus on the important things. Okay? Now today, in every church, just like ours, music is a big thing. We're going to pick on Brother David. Okay? Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you something. You know, I come from a day and a time where if your hair touched your ears, you didn't come to church here. I'm going to tell you straight up, because about 4 of them old women, they'd corner you somewhere and tell you how sorry you was and you was a hippie. All right? I also remember a day and a time when, guess what, was the loneliest of all of the songs, the 3rd verse of any song. Because guess what? No Baptist church ever sung the 3rd verse. If you sung the 3rd verse, David would get fired. So now, do you begin to see how crazy these things are? And what he's saying is you know what? The two can coexist. Now, we will never compromise doctrine. We will never compromise the Bible. You know what I'm saying? We just will not do that. But there are some things, folks, that just really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But we get folks that get all huffed and puffed and their wheels start turning and smoke coming out of their ears. And then they say, I wonder why we ain't got no young people here. You think? But you know, it's always the preacher's fault. I want to show you something. This is the installation of the Pope in 2005. Okay, can y'all see that? 2005. How many devices do you see in there? Can you see them? Y'all are sitting a little far away. Okay. I think there's 3 in there total. I want to say there's one up about in here somewhere. I think there's one over here somewhere. There's 3 total, okay? 2005, when that Pope went in, they're standing outside waiting to hear who the new Pope is going to be. 2013. Can you see the difference? Anybody catch that, or is it just me? Which means what? This generation is a slave to technology. Now, you know what we call Generation Z? You know what the culture calls Generation Z? Digital natives. Digital natives. Okay? Generation Z. Here are the 5 generations that are currently alive and the things that define them and their culture. Listen to this. All right? Greatest generation, that's 73 and plus, that's World War II. World War II defined those folks, okay? Baby boomers, 54 to 72, the moon landing. You remember the president came on and said, we can do this? Guess what happens when you deal with this generation? These are the people who want to build things and want to grow things. You know why? Because they were challenged as children, and guess what they decided to do? We can do this, all right? Then you go on to Generation X, that's 38 to 53. They wound up cleaning the mess up, because guess what their defining moment was? Challenger. Remember that? Remember when the Challenger blew up? All right? The Generation X, the millennials, and that's why, all right, 9/11 was their big thing. It defined them of who they were. All right? You go to Generation Z, and guess what? Guess what defines them? All right, guys, y'all are them. Is it right or wrong? Is it right or wrong? Okay. Okay. All
Are
right.
you on some sort of technology though? Okay, that would be the point.
Okay. And I would dare say this too, Chase. You're the exception, not the rule. I would say you're the exception, not the rule. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can get right down here. I don't know why I did all this. All right. So, let's meet Generation Z.
That's not really correct about World War II veterans. Because I'm 78 and the war was over. So I knew.
Well, I think as a whole, there were a lot of people who did serve. But no, wait a minute. And he's not just saying because they served in there. He's saying that war defined their culture. I give you an example. If you talk to somebody, if we had a 30% of our congregation that was alive during the Great Depression, okay, how hard do you think it would be to step out on faith and borrow $100,000? Because this church has done it. And, brother, it liked to split them. All right? Hey, at one time, I had more than $100,000 worth of consumer debt myself. Not a church of 150 people. Why would people be resistant to that? Man, we're going to pay the parking lot. Glory! No, because you know what they know? They know what it's like to be hungry. See? Because they lived through it. And that's what he's saying. He's saying that older generation, World War II, it did color everything they did, everything they thought, every way they behaved. Okay? Generation Z is growing up in a post 9/11 world, 24-hour news, instant information, and global social connections. Generation Z currently makes up 25.9%, or a quarter, of the U.S. population. They live increasingly in multiracial and multi-generational homes. In other words, most of them live with who? Not their parents. They live with their grandparents. Now, that's a good and a bad thing, okay? And we're going to look at the good and the bad here in just a minute, okay? 92% are online daily, Chase. A quarter of them are online constantly. I'll tell you a little story. My deceased brother-in-law was carrying his son and her intended, they were in a four-door truck. So they were sitting, there were six of them, okay? He was sitting in the middle. They were sitting on the outside edges. They drove from Cincinnati, Ohio, down to somewhere, one of them army bases in Texas, which, if it's anything like flying, it was 1,000,000 miles, okay? Those two young people, never spoke a word. They were sitting right across from one another. Right or wrong? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. 26% have a favorable view of socialism. They would vote with Bernie. They are in no hurry. They are intellectually advanced, yet they mature slower. Anybody want to take a stab at why that is? They're intellectually advanced. Why would they be intellectually advanced? Because of the technology. It's right in front of you. I mean, hey, let's face it. You know that. Give me somebody's phone. Don't give me Chase's because he don't have his. All right? This right here has more computing power than all the computers that sent the men to the moon. And you got it in your pocket. Ever been to the library where I went to seminary? 3 stories tall. This little thing right here, I guarantee you half that library is on this phone. And the other half I can access through the internet. So now do you begin to understand why they know the facts and the figures. But because guess what happens when you're on this? What are you not doing when you're on this? You're not interacting with anybody else. That's exactly right. So what happens then to the ability to be able to communicate, to socialize? What happens? We call it a social network, but it really isn't a social network. The lie to the whole thing is, guess what? The more time you spend on this, I don't know if it's in this slide or not. Okay? There's a good thing. All right? To the fact that that they are intellectually advanced, yet they grow up slower. They're less frequently going out without parents, and parents much more knowledgeable of where they are. In other words, guess what? They don't go outside. You know why? Because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them. Why? Because their parents have done what? Somebody will haul evil, kill you, and they'll eat you. You remember that? What was the one with the, what was the fairy tale with the Grimm's fairy tale? It was the witch that was going to eat the 2 kids? Hansel and Gretel. Today, brother, let me tell you something. You flip on 48 hours, and you'll go, well, guess what? They've grown up with that. Their parents grew up with that. So now what happens? We don't go nowhere unless mom and dad goes with us. Okay? They are less likely to have a job as a teen. Anybody here got a job? You got a job? Used to don't count. That's almost in horseshoes. Anybody else? Okay. Less likely to have a job as a teen. The ugly is this. 1 in 4 do not have a driver's license when they graduate. Does anybody here have a driver's license? Hey. You're the one in how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they don't want to drive. I have a nephew who now works for the sheriff's office, okay? And man, he was out of school, I know 2 years, 3 years before he ever got a driver's license. And you know why he didn't want a driver's license? Because he was scared he was going to get hurt. I know, I've seen your driving. I'm scared you're going to hurt somebody else. All right? Internet. Time online is growing. Like you really had to hear that. That's a good thing. They have access to information at their fingertips, which dwarfs what former generations had in university library. They spend an average of 6 hours a day, except for Chase. 87% are on social media every day. Every day. Okay? Here's the ugly. Reading fewer books, 3 times fewer have read a book unrelated to schoolwork than a teen in 1976. Matter of fact, actually, the statistic is this, that almost 80% of them have never read a complete book by the time they graduate. Why? Not even in school. Because why? Because guess what? When you flip your phone out, you can search for anything in it. You don't have to read it. See that? He don't even read. He can't even, Chase says he can't even read. He don't even know how to read. All right? This section right here is, Dr. Glover will appreciate this. In person, no more. Okay? In person, no more. Social media or social interaction and good people skills are in steep decline. Good part, they party 1/3 as much as Generation X. Okay? 1/3 less or as much as Generation X. Okay? Gatherings with friends daily has cut in half since 2000. Online friendships are more common than in-person friendships. Why? Because if you're spending 92% of your day on the phone, on social media, guess what? Have y'all seen the thing today, that the little dog it's electronic and it barks at you and it'll bring you a Coke and all that stuff? All right? That a virtual pet? Well, guess what? This generation deals with virtual friends. They say they're their friends. They tell them whatever they want to hear online, but when the rubber meets the road, what happens? Not so much. Ugly. Spending more time alone, and this you can verify this for me, Miss Dr. Glover. Spending more time alone results in more loneliness, less happiness, increasing incidence of clinical depression. More screen time directly correlated to these trends. Did y'all read that? The more this generation stays online, it ain't getting better. It's doing the exact opposite. Because what does it force them to do? To be by themselves. So then what happens? We get lonely. When we get lonely, we get unhappy. When we get unhappy, guess what the incidence of clinical depression does? Nobody loves me. I don't have any real friends, which is a reality. Why? Because where are you? You're at home in your bedroom with your telephone.
And the really sad thing, it leads to suicide.
Yes. Suicide is climbing at an astronomical rate. All right, mental health, they're insecure. Mental health issues are on the increase. There's a good thing. There's nothing good about this, okay? All it does is give an opportunity to minister. Smartphones have decreased sleep time. What does that mean? What happens when you're still going at midnight and got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning? Grumpy is one of them, but what about this? How about more apt to be involved in an accident? Why? Because you are tired. Is that not right? If you're inside sitting on your bed going through your friends list, okay, right? Are you more or less apt to be outside throwing a football around? Everybody except Chase. Okay. The ugly is 1 in 19 suffers clinical depression, and the suicide rate is rising. Okay? Now, why do you say all this stuff, preacher? They're also irreligious. I'm not going to be able to finish this tonight. Okay? The religious affiliations continue to erode. There's an openness to the gospel, which is still high among young people. In other words, they'll listen to you. That don't mean that they're going to pray the sinner's prayer, but it means they'll listen to you. Okay? They'll say, yeah, but they'll listen to a Buddhist or an adherent to Islam just as easily as they'll listen to you. Okay? 1/3 have no religious affiliation at all, and 1/4 are atheists. They tend to see Christians as anti-gay, judgmental, and hypocritical. Anybody ever experienced that? All right? They're insulated, but they're not intrinsic, okay? They are very safety conscious, but they are very much less civic-minded, okay? This is not my data now. This is his, okay? They wear seatbelts. They drive safer and are less likely to binge drink or fight. Half as likely to get in a car with someone drinking as a teen in 1991, okay? Say helping others is important, but they have less charitable in their giving, and that's because, guess what? They don't have a job, all right? They believe in safe spaces from ideas that are offensive. Has anybody heard that on the Idiot Box? We have a safe place at Harvard University for our students. What is the problem with that? What is the problem with that? Because anything that challenges what you think is off limits. Now, I'll give you an example. When Jim Walker was alive, some of y'all were there the Wednesday that the little girl came in. She was from California. She worked there. And she said, I can't remember what she said, Bush or Clinton or one of them, or not Clinton, Trump or somebody. They were warmongers, that we needed more of the Obama administration because, you know, these guys were going to get us out of the war. And Jim, it kind of reminded her, hey, all of this started during the Clinton era. You know what I'm saying? All the terrorism thing, right? But she had made her mind up that, guess what? All Republicans were warmongers. And she walked away. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to discuss. She had her own facts. And that's all she went with. Now, I'll give you an example. Watch your idiot box and watch the people on the left coast. They have their own set of facts, where they get them from, Mars, Jupiter, or wherever. You know what I'm saying? And there's no discussing it with them. There's no saying, but wait a minute, have you thought about, no. I'm telling you, I heard a Democratic senator, and I'm not going to call his name, I heard a Democratic senator say, you know, we need to be careful. They were talking about Wake Island, that we don't get too many people on one side of Wake Island, else it'll flip over in the ocean. Now, this is the brain trust that's supposedly governing us. You begin to understand what I'm saying? That's why that ugly right there, the believe in safe spaces, that's why, guess what? You know what? You should always be able to debate. Amen. Even if you disagree with somebody, you always should be able to say, you know what? But this is how I feel. But you can't do that now. Now, if you challenge what I believe, you know what I'm saying? There's an income insecurity in this generation. They have different attitudes toward work than recent predecessors. The decline in work ethic is reversing, and they are more anxious to get into the job market as adults, though not as teens. Remember, when they're teenagers, they don't have jobs, okay? But when they do want to get into the work, into the market, as they get older, they're less likely to want to own a business because of risk aversion. I told you, they're very sensitive to any kind of risk. And when you own a business, guess what happens? There's lots of risk involved. Absolutely. All right? Yep. Got ahead of myself. Money is in and meaning is out. When they get a job, guess what they're looking for? Show me the money. Not get something done. Show me the money. Okay? I think this is all. Yeah. This is I'm going to have to see where I can stop because we're not going to have time to finish this. Unless I keep you till the hurricane gets here. Okay. I'm going to stop on this one right here. Okay? All right? And there are about 4 more. Okay? They have a contradictory and somewhat surprising views on their own sexuality. Okay? They have less sex as teens and with fewer partners overall. Okay? Everybody, anyway. They are even more likely to embrace living together before marriage. Wonder why they would do that. They are growing up in seeing that as a way of life, but why else would they? Sorry? Risk aversion is exactly right, because if I get married, what may happen?
I get a divorce.
I might get a divorce. Exactly right. Okay? Pornography is more accessible, but ironically, not increasing participation in premarital safe experience, safety, risk aversion, replacement. So there's more pornography, yet they're less sexually active. Does that make any sense? There you go. There you go. I'm going to get right down here real quick. I try and go through these. If you want a copy of this, by the way, I will send it to you. Like I said, it is not mine. Okay, so now here's the next question. How should the church respond? Because that's what this is all about. This ain't about beating anybody up. This is about simply understanding why churches are closing their doors. So what must the church do? If you're trying to reach a culture, what do you have to do? I don't know if you've ever met any missionaries, I mean real missionaries that go in the mission field. Guess what? They only have so many months to learn a language. If they can't learn the language, guess what? They bring them home. Because a culture or a missionary that can't speak the language, what good are they to them? See? So they have to learn about the culture. Are we doing that? We are not. Matter of fact, actually, we blame the culture for the mess we're in now. And there's a problem with that, because here's the deal. You know what? Jesus said the field was white to harvest. Does that make any sense? The field isn't the problem, right? Maybe it's workers who can't pick cotton. You see what I'm saying? So we have to learn how to become cultural missionaries. We need to engage and include younger members in leadership. They don't want the responsibility, but they want to speak. They want a seat at the table. Okay? So that they feel like their views are important. Because they are. Is that not right? Okay? And then finally, prioritize children's ministry. We've been doing that for months now. Trying to get the children's ministry up and going. Be purposeful in leadership, development, discipleship. Remember what I told you? A church that is not raising up leaders is backing up. So when people come to you and say, gee, would you teach a Sunday school class? You need to say, yep, that's me. Don't sit here 44 years in the same pew and say, but no, I can't do that. Yeah. Because here's the deal. We're in a spiritual battle. Paul told us that, you know what? You need to be wise to the strategies of the devil. Okay? You need to understand where you are. You know, I mean, I would hope that all of you brought an umbrella today, because the news said what was going to happen. It's going to rain, right? Well, Miss Casey, I'm ready. You cannot hit Nathan with that while he's in church. Wait till he gets outside. All right? So the idea is that, guess what? We don't need to be prepared for Sunday. We need to look 5 years down the road. Because if it's changing this fast now, what's it going to look like in 5 years? Y'all ever thought about that? And here's the deal. It may actually be unrecognizable. People say, that won't happen, preacher. I can't do it. You show me that picture. That can't happen. You keep believing that. Because you know what? You just think back over just the time I've been here. How many solid, 100% sold out Christians have we lost? How many have replaced them? Some. Many as we lost. Because when them people went home to be with the Lord, they broke the mold. Yeah. So we got a choice. We can sink or swim. We can do whatever. But you know, when somebody proposes a change and you stomp your foot and say, I'm never coming back, and my lips poked out and I'm slobbering all over myself, you might want to think about it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Times are changing. Bethesda cannot be the Bethesda of 1950 and not survive. Cannot. So, was it worth the time to listen to this? This guy had some insights, man. He said, you know, you need to start connecting the dots. And when you begin to understand these different cultures, these generational differences, light bulbs start coming on. I'll tell you something that is a good news about Generation Z, because most of them live in multi-generational homes with their grandparents. Guess what they're more open to? They're more open to, guess what? Coming to church with grandma or grandpa and worshiping like grandma and grandpa worship. You know why? Because grandma and grandpa are raising them. So there's good there. There is. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, we've got to be aware of it. We as a church have got to be intentional, which is we are going to do things. Now, some of you are going, when is it? Monday? It's Monday, isn't it? When's the Sunday school thing? Monday. The 15th? It's Monday, okay, over at West Acres. The title of that seminar is reaching the next generation. The Georgia Baptist Convention has gone whole hog on this because they understand that, guess what? If we are going to survive as a church, we better pony up. And we need to saddle up. And just simply saying, I ain't doing that stuff, I ain't going to get it. I ain't going to get it. That'll last a while. 3 years, 5 years, maybe 7. You might even get a whole 10. You may even be dead by the time the results come around. But the results are coming. So we need to be aware of it. All of y'all that can go, all you teachers and stuff, man, we need to get after it. We need to be reaching out to everybody we can reach out to, all generations. All right, any questions? I really confused you. Hope don't ask too many questions because I'll have to get Steve Parr up here to answer them. All right? Because I just parroted what he taught me. Folks, tonight, this storm is supposed to hit here about 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? So,
around this anywhere between 4 and 6 this way. It's supposed to hit Macon about 2 o'clock in the morning.
4 and 6. That'll be good, though, because it'll be on closer to the morning. If you get without power for whatever reason, call me, okay? I know some guys that have got some generators. I have a couple of generators. You know, we're not going to let you just sit in the dark, all right? We'll help you until we don't have any anymore. But call us. We did it the last time we had a storm. If you get blocked in your driveway, a tree goes down or something, call us. And we'll be setting on go. We'll try and do what we can to help you. May have to wait till daylight, but we'll do what we can to help you, okay? Everybody have my number. Everybody should have my number. If you don't, if there's a bulletin back there, you need to get one because my number's on it. And we need to check on the folks who are not here, especially our seniors. Okay? Yes?
We got 3 tickets back here. Somebody needs.
Got 3 tickets to the movies. Hey, I had a lady call today. She wants 2. So you have 1 ticket left. Okay. Okay. Feel like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You know what I'm saying? So. All right. If there are no other questions, we're fixing to go to the house. Please be very, very careful on your way home. And if there's anything I can do for you, just give us a holler. We'll help you any way that we can. And I'm going to ask, let's see.